MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey, hey! Smoothest one of the week, I think. That one worked well. What's up, everybody? It is Wednesday. We are live on YouTube and available to you whenever and wherever and however you want us to be available to you on demand through the beautiful magic of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, help us grow, share it with people you love. And John.
And
people
what?
You hate. People you hate.
Oh, yeah, your enemies.
And John. and John. Share it with people you love and John.
I was thinking I'm not gonna do it with Pandora because I can battle through with the app. I think I'm gonna break down and just get Spotify. A lot of people do Apple Music as well, but just pay for the service, so you just have unlimited access to the songs you want. Then it also crossed my mind we could probably just do this through Ham Enterprises, just get YouTube ad free. So like sometimes I'll be in the shower and I'll listen to a playlist. If you do the shower playlist, the problem, and again, I don't pay for anything ad free, so the ads kick in. You'll hear one song, and then if you're standing next to the iPad, it's easy to skip after 5 seconds. But if you don't, your entire shower, especially if you're like shaving your head, the next 8 minutes will be 2 car commercials.
Or what if you get one of those ads that's like, my friends were like, is that mud you're drinking? It's like a 5-minute ad if you let it play.
Or the one where it's like, how do you get these rib muscles? People think it's all the weight room. It's like he talks for fucking 7 minutes.
All right, now we might be making money off of these ads as this is happening, so shout out to those ads. 3 ads I'm seeing nonstop. Those 2,
Mud.
Ripped ab guy.
Does the mud have caffeine?
The mud, I don't know.
It's not technically mud, it's water.
And Hank Haney. I've seen Hank Haney 700 times in the last week.
I watch a lot of golf videos. So I mean, you've been.
So I've been watching a lot of like club, do a lot of driver reviews, that kind of thing, and it's always like every man has a slice, but I'm here to fix it. Hi, I'm Tiger Woods' former golf coach, Hank Haney.
Would you keep this tune in the background the whole show?
It's gonna run out here. Actually, it might start back up again. Yeah, we can just. I'll let it run itself out.
I'm not people. I don't necessarily think it's frugality. I'm not a frugal individual. I just would. My argument on why I don't do it is, one, I like random music. So when I go to Pandora, it keeps me in tune with what's playing. Right. So if I listen to a certain artist, it kind of keeps me in the loop.
Yeah.
Radio's dead to us.
No. Pandora radio, or you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like if you just go to whoever's radio, you kind of get in the mix on a lot of things. And I'm usually there to skip it. The only time it truly impacts me is in the shower. If I'm like in a mood and I'm going my YouTube playlist, and then the second song I get the mud ad.
I got to tell you, man, your recommendation the other day.
Which one?
Post Malone, who turns out he lives in Utah. I did a deep dive. I'm like, did he just name himself after a play of the Utah Jazz? Turns out no. Like Post Up Malone.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I thought, because I heard him say, like, I went back to Utah. And I was like, oh, my God. It's like Elevator. It was like his name could have been Elevator Screen Curry,
Yeah.
But I guess his dad's last name is Post. I still didn't figure out where the Malone.
Well, he's a big Cowboy fan, which doesn't necessarily mean anything that you're from Dallas, right? Because they have national. But Jerry likes him.
Okay. His cover of Brad Paisley while playing with the Dwight Yoakam band. Incredible.
He did
Claire Screen Clay.
Yeah. Type in, he did a Nirvana song. I think if you just type in like Post Malone covers, he's done a lot of stuff. Well,
somebody DM'd me. They said I saw him in concert a few years ago, and he did a ton of covers. It was incredible.
You know what's crazy?
Because Howard Stern just asked him the other day, like, are you going to do a country album? And he's like, I just have all these. I got so many responsibilities right now, touring responsibilities, album responsibilities. It's hard for me to just take a minute and just do a country album, but I would like to do it.
I think if he did a country album, he would be freaking awesome. And the great part about country music is there's a million writers in Nashville just writing songs. I mean, he could get 12 songs and let them rip. It would be fantastic. I actually assumed he was closer to our age. He's 27. Maybe he looks, he's weathered.
Lived.
he's definitely lived.
He has live golfed.
he has live golf like old the shark. Third late Greg.
RP says he put his last name in a rapper name generator from Google and it gave him Post Malone.
You know what's crazy is a lot of them. I think I saw a similar Howard Stern clip. Is a lot of guys that got big in this generation, like 13, 14, 15 on, right? They weren't big before quote unquote streaming. They got big on just stream. They just put out a song and it streamed. It was like it hit 1 million, it hit 50 million, it hit 1 billion. Like that's how Luke Combs just put his song on one of the streaming services, and he got really big that way. He's like, I didn't have an album. This is cool because it's somewhat relatable. Like what you and I are doing is not possible 12 years ago. Like we don't have a show. Like you're either on the radio or you're nothing. Where what Luke Combs did 7-8 years ago, there were a lot of people singing in bars, still are, but like you could not put a song out there without a record company, because that's the only way to get access to the radio. He was like, we skipped the radio. We streamed. And then the guy that managed them, and I think this would probably fall under the category of like every musical genre. A lot of guys, I would say between like late 20s to early 30s, there's probably a large percentage of them that didn't, my first Interscope or, whatever, Universal. It's like, no, I made it on my own with my Apple computer and some equipment. We put it on a streaming service. Like Luke Combs, like, where I got pretty big early on was, I almost said Vice. What was the 6-second clip that Twitter used to have? What was that thing? Vine.
Vine, yeah.
He's like, I got pretty big on Vine. And I think back, like, there were a lot of artists I felt like, who's that? Like on Vine? Because it was only 6 seconds. It's like, as someone that can get very, very angry at social media because of what it makes me feel, I also be the first to acknowledge I wouldn't have any money, the last 5 or 6 years without the access that all the internet encompasses.
Right.
I feel very, very lucky to be a part of this era.
You think you'd still be doing Raiders postgame live?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't. I probably would have changed industries.
No, you wouldn't have changed industries.
But I mean, I wouldn't be in like, Middlekoff on the pregame show for the, the Arizona Cardinal. Like, that's why I got out of scouting. Like, I wasn't going to bounce around.
MyRapName.com.
Ballsack Sports.
They just gave me Guy G Master.
Yeah, it sucks.
Wonder how many times Post
type in D. Type in D.
Okay. Sniper J is what it gives you.
That is not terrible.
JD Assassin.
Which one do you like more?
Sniper J.
Yeah. Who's up next? Sniper J.
Go to the Wu-Tang one. Somebody said Wu-Tang name. I remember when people may not remember this story, but it was revealed. This is actually, when you think about it, John, kind of crazy. Mike Vick had gone to like I think it was like a clinic, for STDs, and it
was herpes. Yeah.
That Michael Vick's fake name was Ron Mexico.
He didn't go to a clinic. He had herpes and needed to get treated, but he was afraid to go somewhere, so he went to a clinic, not the team doctor, and it was Ron Mexico.
There used to be a Ron Mexico name generator.
That was a running joke on Jim Rome back when Jim was gone.
Oh, okay. And I remember the name generator gave me Hank Jamaica. I thought it was a pretty good one.
I would put Hank Jamaica's not terrible at all. Ron Mexico, and remember relatively recently, because the Ron Mexico, I think, was Atlanta Falcons Mike Vick, right? This was probably early
NFL player Mike Vick.
I would say in the peak of the internet, like when it was thriving over the last 5 years, how about Joey Freshwater? That was
Joey Freshwater's a good one.
I'd say Joey Freshwater's about, and he posts a lot of pictures about him fishing. He probably thought
Lane Kiffin, everybody.
Wasn't Joey Freshwater also circling at the same time? Like, was Lane sleeping with Nick's daughter? Wasn't that one of the things?
Yeah, Joey. That was right around the time she got engaged at Bryant-Denny Stadium, I think, or married or something like that.
Yeah.
Pole assassin.
See, the difference I would say with Pole, like that was her stripper name. Like these guys made up names to live. Like you would meet Lane out in town, which is crazy to think he's the Alabama offensive coordinator in Tuscaloosa. Like, hey, I'm Joey Freshwater. No, Lane, I know who you are. You're Lane Given.
I have a beer? I've told you about this. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast. Maybe I have. Sorry if I have. Somewhere I have. I should probably get it framed. When I went on a road trip with the Warriors to call a couple of their games back in 2016, they give everybody in the traveling party the room list. So you need to call anybody. You just get the room list. All the players' names are listed by their aliases.
Who had the best one?
Well, I don't, it doesn't say who's who. So you're just guessing. Like, I don't know. The players probably know their aliases, right? But I'd have the list. It would tell me Steve Kerr's room number, but then it just had the aliases. It didn't say who.
But my thing is, like, I get why Steph, Clay, and Draymond would get an alias, but it's like, I know he wasn't necessarily on the team, but like Juan Toscano-Anderson, like every single player alias.
I think it's just fun, probably, to make an alias, you know?
But does anyone go to like what's the guy's name? Chorizo? Whoever the Chioza. Like Chioza, bro. Just your fucking regular name works. Like we don't need, James Wiseman, maybe in a couple of years. James Wiseman's cool right now,
Do you see the Wiseman play? They played a summer league game on Tuesday night.
Oh, I watched.
So did I. George Sedano did the interview with him before the game. Did you see that interview?
You remind me of it.
It was like after Sunday's game, did anybody reach out to you? And he's like, no, he said specific. Did Steph or Draymond reach out to you? And he's like, yeah, Steph hit me up, said, good game, keep doing your thing. So Draymond didn't reach out. We had to ask that direct question.
I was listening to our guys Slater and Marcus, little 82 plus minus mix or whatever they're doing, and kind of a summer league summing it up over the first couple games. Marcus claimed, you might know about did you know the Warriors have a facility in Vegas with multiple courts, chef, like Draymond was just there working out. Yeah. I guess Draymond and Boogie.
They own it or they rent it?
He made it sound like it's theirs.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why necessarily, but maybe just cheap real estate, 10 years ago. Joe's like, shit, we might as well. Summer league, you want to have a month, kind of a little spring training-y. But I guess in the spring training, like if I went to Scottsdale right now, the Giants use some of those facilities year round, right?
Yeah, for like rehabs and minor league guys.
I don't really know what the use would be non-summer league, right? Maybe Joe's like, shit, I'll just go get a sandwich.
Pick up games.
Yeah.
You guys want to play some pickup? Yeah. What time? Well, the flight is at 7. The what? But Joe uses Maples Pavilion, I think, for all this pickup action. So
one takeaway I had at the summer league, and I texted a couple people this last night. Dunleavy, who it's different because he was a player and Kyle went to right coaching. But when you are a guy, and Dunleavy's dad, was a big-time NBA coach for a long period of time. So when Mike Dunleavy was born, he was just born into basketball. Can you imagine how many times Dunleavy, before he realized he could become a player, like Steph when he was young, whose dad was a player, but same type deal. You're just at the basketball gym, and you just listen to Mike Dunleavy talk, and you're like, this guy just finished playing not that long ago, and now he's like the assistant GM. But he speaks exactly like a basketball guy. Like he can do strengths and weaknesses talking about guys. And you just realize this guy has been around basketball his whole fucking life. Just when he was in junior high, his dad's a coach. 8 years old, his dad's a coach, like his whole life. And then he just becomes a player. And then he's around Coach K. I follow Duke on Instagram. They had 95 people at Summer League, including coaches and everything. They had a huge dinner in Vegas. It was just like the Duke Invitational dinner, in a backyard. And I swear to God, it looked like there were 500 people there. He's one of them. And then you realize JJ Redick is calling the game. He's interviewing him. Before they even mentioned it, I was like, God damn, they both played at Duke. And then they realized JJ kind of grew up in that area, used to stay at his house. I don't know if we quite realize it's a little different in basketball. He's not a coach, he's an executive, but Mike Dunleavy is a lock general manager in the NBA. Lock. I felt like just
as long as he's smart, right?
Well, he clearly is. I mean, he just talked I just got Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay. He's probably not as outgoing as Sean McVay.
I thought you meant any version of him. You just mean him specifically.
I mean him specifically. Like, I don't see how Mike Dunleavy Jr. is not a general manager in the NBA. Like, what's his resume? Player, dad. I mean, he fits the whole thing.
Third,
and then
not
him,
just player, like third overall pick player.
Him individually, high-level guy, smart. The Warriors shot him up like a rocket ship. They've been and then I'm watching their team. I'm like, God damn, they got guys everywhere. And you start realizing, like, he's kind of been the Travis Slank for the last 4 or 5 years, who is a general manager. And then you listen to Sean Livingston talk. You're like, well, if he wants to do that, he'll just replace Dunleavy and keep moving on up. Like, God, they got a lot of high-level guys.
The 1999 West McDonald's All-American roster: Carlos Boozer, Jason Capono, Jason Gardner, Casey Jacobson, Brian Cook, Mike Dunleavy Jr., Jonathan Bender, Nick Collison, Jason Richardson.
It's a good mix of athletes and shooters, huh? And size.
How about Mac McClung wearing 55? I was like, I saw Mac McClung, just the way he moved, I was like, and he's wearing 55. My first thought was, all right, which part of West Virginia is he from? Jay Will. He's actually from Virginia. He's like he grew up like 2 hours away from where Jason Williams grew up.
He's pretty sweet. I love him.
Jason Will or Mac McClung?
Well, I didn't know that much about Mac McClung. Besides, like, I heard him mentioned on a podcast, like, keep an eye on this Mac McClung guy. And watching him last night, people were comparing him to Jay Williams. And I'm like, what are they talking about? He kind of plays like him. But then when I Googled him that he played at Texas. No, but I mean, he kind of has, like, shoots a little too
he
weird.
Moves like him. Yeah. He wants to. You can see the influence.
He played at Texas Tech, which is clearly one of the best programs in the country.
They were good.
Right? Like,
they were good. But
whether he's an NBA player or not, like, to me, the coolest part about in basketball, like in football, if you don't make the NFL, there's like, you're just kind of done. In basketball, he can go to Europe. He can just roll the pickups for the next 30 years and be just like, oh my God, this guy Mac McClung showed up and just fucking lit us up, in a pickup game. In football, I guess you could just like, this guy looked like he played D1. He's just throwing around some weight at the weight room. Like, what do how do you really flex your, or like, if you throw 99, but you can't make the bigs, where do you flex your muscles?
Well, and also like the problem, if you're just good at one thing, there's no place for you at a minor league level. Like in basketball, if you're not quick enough and you're not a good defender, but you're good at one thing, you can shoot the shit out of the ball. You could play in Germany or Greece or, Jimmer, right? Went off to play in Shanghai forever. In football, there's nowhere to go. Like
just ends.
It was like Ted Ginn, really fast. Lucky as that one skill. I mean, he was a top 15 pick, turned out into a pretty good. Like, he was good at other stuff.
But he played for a long time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He wasn't actually a one-trick pony, even though we talk about him that way, right? He was a receiver.
I just think, like, everything beside football, like, if you never make the PGA Tour and you played on some mini tours, you just end up at your country club and it's like, God, we got this one guy. He could beat every single person I've ever met except a PGA Tour player. If you're like a fringe pro tennis player, but you never quite make it, wherever you play tennis, people are like, this is the best, bro. This one guy. Football is just, this really big, huge guy that lives down the street from me. He's just big.
It's really it's a shame. Like, when your career ends, you don't play again.
It's just over. Where in basketball, it's like you can just keep hooping.
It's really one of the beauties of golf and basketball. It's a lifetime sport. Even baseball. Like, where do you go? Softball? You're not gonna go play softball.
I do think that softball, when probably in like the 70s and 80s and maybe even the 90s, probably a little more consistently all over America than it feels like now. Could be off.
I would agree. I remember my dad was on like a softball league when I was a kid.
My dad played in really they had competitive softball in like Davis and Woodland.
John, this show.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, keep going.
This show is brought to you by our friends at buckmason.com/ham Right now, you get 15% off when you spend at least $100 at buckmason.com/ham. We're both wearing Buck Mason right now. Odds are, if you see one of us, we'll be wearing Buck Mason. Middlekauff's got the hoodie. I've got the tee. buckmason.com/ham1. Love it all.
Yeah, it's really easy, guy. buckmason.com, promo code /ham and the number 1. A purchase over $100, you get 15% off. Can't recommend it enough. Tees, sweatshirts. Like I said, wearing sweatshirt right now because it's about 64 degrees in my house. AC's working well. Pick the ductwork myself. buckmason.com/ham1.
Yeah, love it all. I'm a big fan of the Pima tee. The slub tee is also great. Pima, you can hang in it at the house. You can go out in it. Recommend sizing up. If you're medium, get a large, et cetera, et cetera. Love it all. Tell us about it when you get it. buckmason.com/ham and the number 1. to get 15% off when you spend at least $100. buckmason.com/ham.
Do it.
Mike Florio, and it was transcribed by NinerNation.com, said this: I think the Texans are waiting for Jimmy Garoppolo. I really do. I think the Texans may have been the team that was poised to trade for him. Remember, at one point it slipped out that they had a trade ready to go, and then Jimmy G got shoulder surgery. It fell apart. When they presented that, there was kind of this weird unspoken vibe that they believe that once he's cleared, that possibility reemerges. They've been selling this idea that Davis Mills is their quarterback. Davis Mills is their guy. A lot of tentacles between Garoppolo and the Texans front office. I think he's going to end up with the Texans. That's Florio.
I have a little bit of inside information in the sense of Davis Mills and has nothing to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's pretty clear that they like him, but I mean, I know for a fact they really like him and they were really intrigued. But that's also, he was a 3rd-round pick. They're not that invested in him. And we've never seen Caserio, because since he's been the GM, their team's been so shitty, and he's just traded kind of their only assets to try to get picks back. But what would Belichick do in this situation? Davis Mills hasn't really proven anything, and no fault of his own. The team sucked last year, even though the second half of the season he looked really good. It's not crazy. The problem would be if you do have something in Davis Mills and you bring in Jimmy, does then Jimmy just, what if Jimmy can't beat him? I don't know. I mean, it's a little risky
because his growth. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, yeah, you're not like this year. If you're the Texans, you're not expected to make the playoffs. So don't you just want to get like 2 years worth of inventory on this guy and see what you have? A little bit like the Eagles got to do with Jalen Hurts. They just also happened to make the playoffs because their team was a little bit better. If I'm the Texans, I just pulled up their depth chart. Their backup is Kyle Allen, who's, a backup, and Jeff Driscoll. So they got guys that can just be backups. One of those two guys, whoever wins a backup job. Wouldn't you just roll with Davis Mills? Or is that, the way Caserio for 20 plus years, going to the playoffs, winning Super Bowls, competition, Patriots, pretty cutthroat. Obviously, he would have been a huge part of being around Jimmy Garoppolo when he was around, so he knows him really well. If you do like Davis Mills, which I know they do, wouldn't you just see what you got on a season that you're not trying to win 2 games, but if you won 7 games and you're like, God, we actually might have a starting quarterback here for the next 7-8 years.
I think so. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially because Davis Mills is not your normal 3rd-round pick in that he is skilled like a 1st-round pick. His physical traits is not what put him in the 3rd round. His lack of availability at Stanford, did not play a lot of games. I think if we went back and look, he probably started 9-10 games, something like that at Stanford. It was kind of crazy.
His entire career?
Maybe that number's a hair low, but he didn't start a ton of games at Stanford. COVID, injuries, you don't start playing right away as a freshman as it is at Stanford as a quarterback. So you become draft eligible you can become draft eligible really quickly at Stanford without having played a ton. John's looking it up so you can tell me. But
I went back to his just his lineage. I went to his rivals page because
big time recruit out of the state of Alabama or Georgia.
Yeah, out of Georgia. He was the number 10 overall player in the country. And obviously he was the number 1 player in Georgia, which for those of you that aren't super into recruiting it's not Texas or California, but it's a top 5 state, wouldn't you say, that most people, the way they talk about recruiting? Ohio, yeah. Louisiana, yeah. Texas, California, Florida, Georgia.
Yeah.
So, you would it'd be easy to justify. This guy was a blue chipper. His college just got weird. It's not like
played 14 games, John. 14 total games.
To me, I would understand it if he was like, he went to Stanford. He was like a preferred walk-on, and then he became a player. No, this guy was a blue chipper who hit some rocky times, who then gets to the NFL. And remember last year when the Niners played him, we watched the previous couple games, like, this guy actually looks pretty good. He does. He's big. He's got a good arm. I guess if you and I were running the Texans, let's just say, and we were having this conversation, he's a high character guy and he's got a lot of talent and he got to play a lot last year. It's twofold because you never want to look at like competition always comes first, but it is unique at the quarterback position. I think I would lean. Let's just see what we got in this kid. Because we're not the Steelers. We're not trying to make the playoffs, right?
Yeah, I would too. Not only would I lean it, I would be all in on Davis Mills. But it's easy for us to tell other people you should be rebuilding if they think we can go win 8 games with Jimmy Garoppolo. that I understand a desire to go do that, right? If they think they can go win 9 games with Jimmy Garoppolo. Losing sucks. I bet Nick Caserio hates losing. No matter what your plan of patience is, it sucks to lose. And if you think you have a valuable asset that you can get for pennies on the dollar because there's not going to be much competition in the trade market, because ultimately the 49ers have no interest in paying Jimmy Garoppolo $26 million to be on the roster, and the player from your time in New England, you could argue that if you're the Texans, you do it only because in the environment of acquiring assets and trading assets and trying to inflate value for assets so you can then trade them. Like, if there's just a value in trying to acquire Jimmy Garoppolo right now, that Jimmy Garoppolo might be worth more to somebody else later than he's worth to all those people right now, right? Like, the market right now is not ripe for Jimmy, but if you can get him, maybe someone will need him week 7, and now you've got him on your roster. You have plenty of flexibility from a financial standpoint because your quarterbacks are cheap. You've got a ton. I think they've got multiple late round picks, one they could use to get Jimmy. Like, they might be looking at it that simply. We can bring him in. If Davis is as good as him, great. Somebody might need Jimmy. Like, the Niners cannot do what other teams could do if they don't give up much to get him, right? The Niners can't keep him around till week 7 and then trade him in early October if somebody gets hurt. But the Texans could.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're looking at it that way, but that's just another kind of loophole in this for a team that were to acquire him if it doesn't cost you much to acquire him.
Can I read you
what if Davis Mills gets hurt week 2 and you don't want to go 2-13 or
he's not
15.
Mr. Durability, right? The top 10 recruits, and he was 10. Number 1, Najee Harris. Number 2, never heard of him, Marvin Wilson, went to Florida State. 3, Cam Akers. 4, Alex Leatherwood. 5, Josh Canado, never heard of this guy either. 6, Jalen Phillips, UCLA.
Miami, yeah.
7, how about David Shaw back in the day? Walker Little. So he got 2 of the top 10 recruits.
Is Walker from Texas or Georgia?
Yeah, Houston, Texas. Number 8, this guy turned out to be a pretty good player. Chase Young, Ohio State. It's weird. Some of these quarterbacks, Baron Browning, never heard of him, outside linebacker, went to Ohio State, and then Davis Mills.
Any other quarterbacks around in that mix there?
Yeah, I'm searching. A.J. Terrell, T. Higgins, Jeff Okudah, Isaiah Wilson, Kellen Mond is the next quarterback. Not a great quarterback class.
John, remember, David Shaw came on this show 2020, said he thought Davis Mills could be a first-round pick.
Tua Tagovailoa, 53rd.
Wow.
You know what position
Tagovailoa
is pretty just like, if you're sweet in high school, you're probably going to be sweet in college, and then you're going to get drafted, is running back. Najee, DeAndre Swift. Just running backs, they're sweet, usually just stay kind of sweet. It's not like, you just couldn't break a tackle. No, it's like, no, he's pretty good. Yeah. Diamador Lenore is actually one spot behind Tua Tagovailoa.
Where's Diamador from?
He's from Los Angeles.
Yeah. But hey, look, Florio is saying, I think he's going to end up on the Texans. That's not, he said, I think he's going to end up on the Texans. So
I'm hesitant to say that, even though it's definitely, there are connections with the general manager, and ultimately it is, while we, like you said, we would do it. He might just say, this guy hasn't earned the right to not have competition. Get him in there. Who knows? He gets injured. We're not trying to lose. Could always flip Jimmy again. Kind of do an NBA style trade. Just get an asset.
Yeah. And it may not even be for the trade aspect of it. They just might think, we have the money to bring him in here and see what happens. So let's see what happens.
Benjamin on this list.
Yeah. ASU.
J.K. Dobbins. I'm telling you, there's not a running back, bro, on this list that's not a pro. You're just basically, if you're a top 50 running back, if you're a top 50 recruit and you play running back, like, more than likely, you're just going to the NFL. Probably like being like a top
year before,
top 25 center. Like, I bet a lot of the just big guys that were blue chippers just end up getting shots in the NBA. Doesn't mean you're going to be good. Okay, we'll go 16. Love this game. Not a running back very high. Scrolling. B.J. Emmons. Never heard of him.
Iowa State or something like that?
Alabama, so maybe he transferred. Not many running backs.
Huh.
KJ Costello.
Yeah.
You know what position there's a lot of? It makes sense. Just a ton
corner.
of wide receivers.
Yeah. Well, there's 7 of. I mean, there's 7-on-7 camp is all wide receivers. That's why I heard someone make the case the other day. Not the other day, a couple of years ago. Like, you should, if you become a cornerback if you can, because there's a lot of receivers out there. There's a lot of receivers on the field, but there's also a lot of receivers trying to be receivers. Corners, they need them on the field because there's all the receivers, but there's less of them.
You know who the top quarterback was the previous year in 2016? He was the 7th overall recruit in the country. Pro-style quarterback. Shea Patterson technically was the 3rd overall recruit, but he was like an athlete. Was Jacob Eason.
How about that?
Pretty crazy.
John, this made some news. Trey Lance, according to Brandon Ayuk's Instagram, featured some video of a gold and purple Louis Vuitton short wearing Trey Lance throwing a deep ball.
What do you think those shorts cost you?
I don't know, $15. Somebody selling them out of the trunk of their Dodge Plymouth.
You know what the kids say, you can't hide money.
Only 3 throws from the day. His arm got fatigued after that. That was Brandon Ayuk's comment on his own post. Kyle Juszczyk, caption on point, laughy emoji. George Kittle, laughy emoji, clappy hands.
My problem with the clappy hands emoji is it's like golf clap. People clap like this.
You ever see somebody that claps funny? It's very funny to watch. So these guys are having some fun, John. Them against the world. Good place to be. Good place to be, you against the world when you're a team with expectations. Not every team that has high expectations gets to play the, foxhole. But the Niners, it feels like, are starting to kind of do that little thing. It's not terrible.
Well, I think it's pretty unique because when you look at the division, everyone thinks Seattle's going to suck. They're going to. Arizona's just weird. What is ultimately the Rams, almost like the Clippers, the Rams chip on their shoulder? Every single guy on the team got paid. Every single guy got paid. I mean, Stafford got an extension. Darnold got cash. Jalen is just screaming about how he's a Hall of Famer already on Twitter. I don't know if you saw that. He's like tweeting his resume. It's like, Jalen, we get it, bro. He's just kind of always mad. They just McVay married Super Bowl cake. He's been, if you follow his wife, they've been all over the country, or not the country, out of the country, world traveling. Life's good. I mean, McVay's turned down $100 million offers. Like, yeah, I'll just keep coaching. So they're just riding high. The Niners, who were right there leading that game, everyone thinks their quarterback's going to suck, or just like a major question mark. Like that's not a take. Like people think like no one is being like Trey Lance is going to be a stud. No one's saying that. And in fairness,
I would say I don't, tell me if you agree with, maybe this is even the simpler way to put it, is like their quarterback is a hot topic, is being analyzed and nitpicked nonstop.
For sure. They have had, and rightfully so. It's not like he doesn't deserve it, but when you do that, and then if he turns out to be good, they're going to throw that back in everyone's face. They had one of the number one stories over the offseason, right, in the Deebo Samuel situation, which is not resolved, but it kind of is because he can't go anywhere. And he can't hold out once camp starts because you can't give back the fines. No one really does that anymore. So it's like he's probably going to show up even if he's just standing there if he hasn't been signed. The conversation, the entire camp is going to be Trey Lance. How's he looking? How's he looking? How's he looking? How's he looking? I will say this, and you and I have talked about this before. If you follow these guys on social media, like him and Ayuk feel like they got a really good relationship. Like they're like legitimately friends, kind of like how Deebo and Trent became that, like how George and Juszczyk like feel like they're kind of like that. Armstead and Buckner felt like they were like that for a while. Like they just, for whatever reason, it makes sense. I mean, they're probably similar ages, come in at similar times. Spence just, you're just whatever. it just feels like they got a little bond. Now, River Craycraft was also there. I don't know if you saw that. He was at the the throwing thing too. Not ideal. I told you this yesterday. Like if you had told me Debo had signed in the spring, I don't know if he's even at that thing. Like that is the one thing where you just, is he going to be a big part of the crew? Which doesn't really matter if he's part of the crew once the season starts, but it doesn't quite feel like he's going to be a huge part of like off-season workouts with these guys. He's even said, right? They asked me to throw, and he's like, well, you going to come to Florida? Because I ain't coming to San Jose or whatever. I ain't coming to Texas.
Yeah. You know, the other part of it, like you mentioned Ayuk, and this is where Debo would help, but it's where Kittle and Juszczyk and all these guys do help. Young guys, you don't get the leeway. We don't give you the leeway to defend yourself if you're young, if you haven't proven anything, right? If you haven't proven anything, then you don't get to be a leader until you prove you should be a leader. Albert Breer said it on Russillo's podcast that we were talking about yesterday about Baker. One of Baker's problems was he talked to players on the Browns the same way he talked to guys at Oklahoma. But on the Browns, he had no pelts on the wall. At Oklahoma, he was the guy worth following because he led them to glory. In Cleveland, you can't yell at the center. This was Breer's line about screwing a play up if you screw a play up 2 plays later because you're not locked in and you don't know the playbook well enough. And I think when you have a veteran team like the Niners have some vets, and I would say Ayuk, well, he's not an old guy, but he has transitioned from young guy to kind of one of the older players of the receiving group, or at least of their star group. He's clearly he's a vet in that sense. Those guys can speak for a young player. So when Ayuk speaks for a young player by doing what he did, when Juszczyk supports a young player by doing what he did, when Kittle supports Trey by doing what he did, there is a galvanizing kind of sense there where the young guy wouldn't be allowed to. It would almost feel like he was overly sensitive, if Trey started defending himself against just all of the chatter, it would feel kind of weird. Ideally, you have older guys, established guys who have a place in the league already that can do it for the young guy. He gets to stay away from all of the actual heat, and the other guys get to help kind of dissipate any other pressure. And they take the pressure off him by basically saying, we're going to be the ones that make statements, so the eyes are going to be on us. And I think he's in a Trey, whatever he's going to become. And Darnold, his situation was effed from the start. Even Baker, who was in a good spot with Stefanski, he's had a bunch of different coaches. Trey's in a pretty damn good spot for a player in his position. Fields is in a tough spot. Zach Wilson's in a tough spot. Trey's in a really good spot.
He is. I hadn't even thought about that. One of my favorite characteristic of him right now, given that I don't know how he's going to be as a full-time starter, is there have been ample opportunities for him to kind of do what most people would do through social media. Like they say, my arm can't throw, he hasn't, I haven't seen any of it. He's been pretty good about, and it's impossible because they're all talking about it and seeing it. And it would be very, very easy for him. And I wouldn't blame, up until like 2 years ago, I argued way too often on Twitter with people, and it was a completely pointless exercise for about 8 years. It just, you go nowhere. I would say the same thing about athletes clapping back. Like it doesn't ever accomplish anything, but I understand it. Your emotions are high. People are saying it, and he never does yet. Now you would say this, once he becomes a player, if things don't go well, it would get amplified 100-fold, right? Because you could be like, what are we even talking about? There might be something tangible behind it if you play bad. Honestly, it was an elite Jimmy characteristic. Part of that, he's just not an active social media guy. If anyone had room to talk a little shit over the years, this guy's started in 2 NFC championships in 3 years. People acted like he was one of the shittiest starters in the league consistently. Never said a peep, which would be hard. I respect that because I don't know if I was in his shoes at his age. I don't think I would be able to hold myself back.
Maybe not, but he grew up in a different environment in New England.
For sure, but I'm just saying, like, Tom's gotten a little louder since he left.
Well, yes, but like you said, it's pretty clear that it's a lose-lose situation. It just takes a lot of restraint. And that's where it helps to have people support you. They can take some of the heat for you. They can take some of the heat off of you.
Well, it's easier to be supported too, right? When the people supporting you aren't just like, well, what's this guy saying? Who's this? When it's like the star players who are legit.
Here's the other thing. Back to your original point about this group being able to have something to rally around, a chip on your shoulder, whatever you want to call it. a lot of chips on shoulders are imagined and made up, right? Like the Niners, by and large, I think, I could be wrong. Tell me if you think I'll be wrong about this. If we went and looked at preseason predictions, pick 10 of them, whatever, a month before the season starts, I bet most of them put them in the playoffs, right? But all it takes is one. All it takes is seeing one person not pick you for the all-league team, or one prediction to say Adam Rank says you're going to go 3-13, and then it's all about Adam Rank. It's not even about the prediction. It's not really about the person. You're just looking for motivation. And
like Monday Night Football when the whole crew picks and it's all the one team and the other team wins, and then the social media posts it,
every
and
time.
then all the players, it's like, you guys were in the locker room. You weren't watching Monday Night Countdown. Like you didn't see any of this shit. Like,
we heard about it. Somebody texted me.
You were getting your pregame talk by your coach.
It's so much harder when everybody thinks you're going to succeed. So you got to find somebody who doubts you. Do you think Nick Saban likes playing games when his team is favored by 40?
Well, no, it's when he gets mad. That's when he freaks out, because they always ask him about the next team, and
it's hard. It's hard. So
don't you think the Rams fall in? How many team?
Absolutely.
Is there going to be anyone that doesn't pick the Rams to make the playoffs this year?
No
chance. Is there going to be anyone that doesn't pick the Rams to not be really, really good and be like a Super Bowl favorite? You do, like, to me, they're a team to keep an eye on, of like their urgency, what they have to prove, because their star players have not changed. Their coach hasn't changed. He's a young coach too. He's not an asshole, right? To me, it's easier with the Sabans and the Parcells, like, or the Belichicks, like they're just kind of miserable. Not that McVay won't be driven. It's not like he's mailing it in, but I think it helps when I need to put a fire under you to be an asshole. Then, like Kyle's position, you almost got to temper it a little bit. Like, guys, we got to stay focused. For McVay, like, how do you? Not most guys aren't Aaron Donald, right?
Well, you know what you need? Who just got paid? That's one thing the Patriots benefited from, was Deflategate.
Oh yeah.
What was Spygate? Like, they got to play us, even as the favorite. They got to play us against the world a lot, right?
Mm-hmm. Everyone always talks shit about Belichick.
Orchids of Asiagate.
She owned it.
You're a cheater. You're a cheater. Like, it's just like, here's what I'm talking about. Paul on the stream. I don't know, man. Somebody had the Niners as the 19th best roster in the league. LOL. That's what I'm talking. Like, that's all you need. I don't know who. All it takes is one person. That's all you need.
Well, PFF put out their top 10 college quarterbacks.
Yeah,
and they had C.J. Stroud fourth and Spencer Rattler ahead of him.
Oh wow!
But it's like, you could go, that could really motivate you, and then you could. There are certain things to be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, are we serious? Like, we're gonna get mad over this. The 19th best roster. Like, did Adam Schefter say that, or did like some blogger for the Jags, Jacksonville Tacombe say that? I don't know. There's a different. Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter as long as you can find the motivation. And for the Niners,
no one alive would say they have the 19th best roster. Who knows what they're talking about? It's impossible.
It doesn't, but somebody alive said it, apparently.
It's not. I don't even take it seriously.
Well, you take it seriously if it serves your purpose. And that's where Trey Lance arm fatigue, is Trey any good, all that kind of stuff, is serving it's serving a purpose for them. Served a purpose for Ayuk. It gave Ayuk a chance to have his guys back. Right. We'll see if the Jets rally around Zach Wilson the same way.
You ever play golf 2 days in a row? Your legs get tired. I saw Pat McAfee was like, he's like, next year I got to do two things. First and foremost, I need to practice my putting. Second, to train for the Tahoe, I need to walk a couple 18s. He's like, I can barely move right now. He's like, my feet hurt so bad. Like, yeah, man, it's not. You're wearing golf shoes. Even if you're wearing like Nike golf shoes, you walk back-to-back golf days. I can't. They did 4 straight days. You're probably, some of those guys, you play once a week leading up, in the cart, having a couple beers, bring a couple buddies. And then all of a sudden you walk 4 days.
Also,
in the altitude.
And who knows what course, how flat is the course you're. Yeah, the altitude. That's another part of it. You have to actually look for the balls that you lose.
Yeah.
That to me is the most mentally exhausting part of golf. I don't understand. If your ball's in the shit, like 30 seconds, like at most, like just give it a peek. Like we can just drop right there. I won't even, let's go. Let's move along here.
for sure.
I'll buy you another sleeve of balls. Whatever you want. Pro V1s. Stop looking, please.
Yeah, it ain't coming back. It ain't coming back.
Stop looking.
Do you know what golf balls though, Guy? They're the price point on something where they're just enough. Like if I told you that a sleeve of golf balls was $1, I think people would look way less.
You think
like
so?
When you buy, even if you buy average balls, you spend $30, whatever.
Yeah.
You've just spent enough where you're like, I just don't want to lose. They're not. They're enough to make you think I can't just lose unlimited balls. Like tees. No one ever thinks about a tee. Why? Because the majority of tees are free. Or even if you go to like a golf mart, you buy a huge bag for like $5 with 7,000 tees. But golf balls, the price is a lot different. And you just think in the back of your head, like, well, if I lose a couple more, then I'm out, and then I got to buy a lot more.
Right.
They're just enough, I think. More than just enough. They are enough that makes you go, I don't want to lose this ball. And there's no worse feeling than putting out a new ball and pumping it somewhere like, that's a fucking brand new ball.
Especially like the first tee.
That's why I would recommend Google practice balls and then just take a Sharpie and put the line out. And it basically just line up your putt that way.
It's a good recommendation. Speaking of which, depending on when you listen to this, the Open might be underway already. I saw on Wednesday, somebody tweeted that DeChambeau hit a 311-yard 6-iron.
You know what I was thinking? Do you know who I'd be all over if I was Liv? Would be Daly's kid, who's at Arkansas, who's a good player.
John Daly.
Don't you think that'd be a pretty big coup for them and just a pretty big name? They got John Daly Jr.
Yeah.
I saw John Sr. was interviewed, like, call me up. That's what he said.
Wait. Oh, just John Daly.
The big guy. What?
Playing with Bryson on Thursday. What a combo.
They tee off tonight when we were recording this Wednesday day, 10:35 p.m.
What is that on Peacock? How do I watch that? Peacock?
I mean, it's all Bryson, John Daly tee off tonight at 11:50. How many hours are they ahead of us? Do you know? 10?
Well, I mean, what time do you usually tee off a golf, like a local time? What time is the first tee?
7 a.m.
So 8 hours, maybe?
What's Israel?
Nah, I don't know. 8, 10 hours, something like that.
The last tee time of the day. Tiger tees off 7 o'clock in the morning.
It's funny how that worked out, huh? That's perfect.
I'm in.
That is perfect. Oh, somebody
Not bad at all.
10 hours left in Prime Day to order golf balls, but they don't.
Is today Prime Day?
I think so.
Saw Bezos is hiring. He wants to do a quarterback Manning cast, and Drew Brees is like, "Hey Bezos," and I know Bezos is retired or whatever, but like, "Hey Amazon." NBC literally just kind of fired Drew Brees because he's fucking boring as paint drying. And listen, Drew Brees, high level guy, great player, probably be a great like Elway exec OC if he wanted to. Never would, but he could run. He could be a team president. He would be so boring.
What are you basing that off on, by the way?
What?
That he could be a team president?
It just feels like high level guy, well educated, Purdue. It just feels like he knows football. I would put him under that umbrella before I would ever 3 hours just bullshitting football. Like we just saw him for little segments. And people were like, "This sucks." It's just not his thing.
Yeah, I did see that. But I don't know how many other quarterbacks. Who else are they? Because they also wanted McAfee.
Pat's already doing it. They're already part of it.
But what's he a part of?
Like the pregame show and postgame.
He's on the
show.
So you do a pregame, and then a separate stream for just the quarterbacks watching.
I think they basically kind of want to copy it, which everyone's doing. Are you sure
Pat's locked in with Amazon?
Yeah.
Because this Amazon thing, it's always like, here's a name, and then 3 weeks go by.
Well, I've seen 7. I mean, how many people are on the pregame show? Whitworth, Sherman, Carissa, McAfee. I mean, Tony Gonzalez because they're sleeping with the same chick, Well, Lawrence, maybe only Bezos now, but Tony's on.
Tony's ex-wife?
Well, I mean, I think it's up for debate what the relationship was, but people swingers. Well, I don't know.
John, Indeed.com/ham is doing something that no other job site has ever done. Now with Indeed, businesses only pay for the quality applications that match the sponsored job description. You only pay for the quality applications that match the sponsored job description when you visit Indeed.com/ham to start hiring right now. When you're building a dream team, great scouts can help you find the future MVPs, like John, who looked and he said, hell yeah, get me. Not Sam
Haberman.
Darnold. Didn't like Darnold. To hire great talent faster, you need Indeed.
Indeed's the only job site where you only pay for the applications that meet your must-have requirements. Indeed is an unbelievable, powerful hiring partner. Can't recommend it enough. Visit Indeed.com/ham to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/ham. Indeed.com/hams. Terms and conditions apply.
That's conditions. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Did you know that Baker Mayfield is a full 2 years older than Sam Darnold?
I knew when Sam Darnold came into the league. Remember when Juju was drafted? He was like the youngest player in the history of the league. And Sam was a little bit older than him, but also very, very young. Juju came in at like 14. Sam came into the league, I think, at like 20 years old. I honestly think Juju was 19 when he came in the league. Still don't know how that's quite possible, but it happened. Juju, I think if you look right now, is like 24 years old. He played in the league for like 6 years.
Yeah, basketball player.
I know. But wasn't that the combo? Wasn't it those two guys? Didn't they play together?
Juju turns 26 in November. He played 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, it's his 6th year in the league.
I think he came in. When's his birthday?
November.
So I think he turned 20. You say he's 25 now?
Yeah. Yep.
He turned 20 that his rookie season, and Sam is what, a year younger?
Sam's a year age younger. Yeah.
What's Baker, like 32?
Baker's 27. Darnold is 25. You know where I could see Darnold next is on the Rams.
Come on home.
Yeah, not even for the come on home.
Like the Mitch Trubisky thing. Not necessarily going, but just 1 year, $2 million. Just come and let's just build your life back up.
Yeah, let's get you some stability. I think the fact that he's mobile, I think McVay would like that.
Why wouldn't Andy be all over him?
Andy too. Yeah, I just the Rams was the first place that came to mind. I wasn't even thinking USC come home, but maybe there's that element too. Because I said to you yesterday or the day before, I think Baker's going to start more games from here to the rest of his career than Darnold will. But Baker's been, Baker had the one. You're looking at, they've been pretty close in a lot of statistical categories. They both had 13 picks. Just Baker threw more touchdowns. I think Baker the last 2 years have been in a much better spot in terms of just the team he's been on, the coaching, the talent he's had around him, right? Even though he's had a lot of coaches, you'd say Sam's been at the bottom of the barrel in terms of what he's had around him. And part of the thing with Baker is like people don't like him. Yeah, that's a problem.
People like Sam.
So if Baker's going to have this extended career where he's a borderline starter / maybe somebody's backup, that part's got to get better. Whereas Darnold, he's got a lot of the backup qualities, athleticism, physicality in theory, although his arm's not as strong as it feels like it should be when you watch him. He's young. He's likable.
Yeah, to me, he's really going to benefit because he's still going to be young. Is all the good teams are going to be like, would you rather have Chase Daniel or take a flyer on a guy that maybe you could resurrect and flip or something, and people like him?
Or it's an underrated be around for 5 years on your.
I think it's a really, really underrated quality to just be liked as a player. If you're not, when you're a top talent
at backup quarterback specifically,
to me, when you're a top talent, basketball, football, whatever, you can be a dick, you can be crazy, you can be weird, you can be nice, like you can be Steph or you can be Kyrie. None of it really matters. Obviously, everyone wants Steph, but if you get Kyrie, you kind of just stuck, right? You like the Browns were stuck for a couple years with Baker. But when you're a good guy, like even once you get exposed as a player, people are going to root for you and like you. And that's where other coaches like, man, I've heard great things about this guy. Let me work with him for a little bit. Because aren't you more inclined to work with someone for cheap if you're like, God, I think he's a great guy?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Again, I'm talking if talent's the same, like average, Like I think Mitch had that. I think Mitch has physical flaws. There's an accuracy element to him that Mitch is going to struggle with. But everyone loved. They said Mitch was a great guy. He's just a good guy. He means well. He tries hard. He just might not be good enough. And if you look at the last couple of years, look who wanted him. Sean McDermott, the Steelers. Like, he's just well thought of.
Well, and the other thing is,
guy, even if he struggles this year and gets benched for Kenny Pickett, like he ain't going anywhere for a while. He might just play for $3 million a year as backup, but like people are going to root for him and like him.
Like Darnold, a lot of people around the league had would have had a high grade on him coming out of college, right? Especially like it's actually kind of a good spot, right? When you're a highly drafted player who goes to a bad organization, kind of flames out. There's going to be a lot of good organizations who never had a chance at getting you when you were, a highly sought after asset because they were drafting 25 and you were going to go in the top 5 or whatever. Who probably look at your organization and go, that place sucked. What a weird situation that was. As early as it is, Fields is already in an awkward situation. His regime has already changed. Like Bears have been weird. Obviously, the Jets have been a mess. Doesn't take many, it just takes one to go, we liked him. His situation was bad. Let's give it a shot. And with Darnold, you'll go, we liked him. His last 2 situations were bad. Panthers a bad situation and the Jets were a bad situation. And he's still young.
Who starts more games next 5 years? James Garoppolo or Baker Mayfield?
Well, I mean, Jimmy is how old?
Assuming they both stay healthy, 30. Tough one.
Oh, I'm going to say James Garoppolo.
If all things are equal and they're both available and they're both healthy, James has a lot more. Like, who would you rather have as your quarterback, Jimmy G or Baker Mayfield? Now, one thing someone DM'd me, and this makes a little sense, John Dorsey is now like the number 2 in Detroit. Let's say they suck again and they just kind of get off Goff. Couldn't you see that be a guy, if the Panthers don't want him, Dorsey goes, give this guy a shot, get him with, Campbell, to hold them over as they draft someone, depending? Depends. If they have like the number 1 overall pick.
Could you go from Goff if Baker's not good enough to stay in Carolina this year? Because if it goes well, wouldn't he just stay? Wouldn't they keep him? I don't know if you go Goff to Baker. If you're Dan Campbell, if you're that front office. Good question. I mean, I don't know. That seems like you are going nowhere fast. If that's
the Lions could get to me, the Lions could get weird this year. Like if they just really suck again, people are gonna be like, Where are we going? What are we doing? Because it gets like that. It's one thing. I remember Kyle got here and they traded for Jimmy. Then all of a sudden he got hurt and they sucked again. It just you suck. You really suck back-to-back years. People just wonder like, what are we doing? It's so easy to be like, you got a long runway. Tear this thing down to the skids and do you. And then like year 1.5, game 6, you're like, we've won 3 total games in our last 25. What the fuck's happening? And you're like, well, we're playing. We got everybody. We're trying to suck. It's not fun when you're living in it, which might go back to the Houston Texans thing. Nobody in the NFL. NBA, they love losing because it's like, we'll get Holmgren. We'll get Paolo. We'll get this guy from France. In the NFL, the coaches, most coaches are telling the truth. I spend 0 time evaluate. Like they might, like if they're in their hotel room, throw on a college night game, but they ain't like Saturday is a work day for them, right? Or the moment they get home, if it's a home game, they haven't seen their wife or kids all week. So you just usually go to lunch, you go on a walk, like you do some normal people stuff. They are not sitting there like general managers, like me and you, and like people watching this or listening to this, watching the amount of college football. So when they tell you, like, I don't even know who the fuck these guys are. Remember, Kyle did that one year. They started evaluating the players. Was it the year Jimmy got hurt? I think they kind of did a deep dive. Or they started looking at like Bosa and stuff. But it was clear, like, their season ended the moment Jimmy tore his ACL. Like, it was over. But if your season's not quote-unquote over without an injury, you're kind of living in it,
It's really hard to follow college football casually. It's 2 people who love college football. It's hard to know who the players are, right? So you can't just drop in to your point, if you're an NFL guy, you watch, it's because you know somebody involved or there just happens to be a game on. You're not going, oh, you know what? The number 2 quarterback is playing at 11 on FS1. I got to watch that game.
Yeah, you're not doing that.
And to your point, on the simplest level, it's the day before your game. Like you play tomorrow.
I'd argue this upcoming year,
traveling that day.
This upcoming year with the 2 most famous quarterbacks is about as easy as it gets because they play for Alabama and Ohio State. But there's not like, hey, Dan Campbell, I know you were traveling to play the Chargers this weekend, but did you get a chance to watch Will Levis, Kentucky? They kicked off at 1 o'clock, SEC Network. No, I didn't. You know,
Kentucky Vandy's on this afternoon, guys. Anybody going to catch that?
You agree though that Bryce and CJ are as easy as it gets in terms of consuming the 2 brands they play for. Even if you're just a NFL head coach, you kind of pay attention to like they're ranked 1 or 2. You can kind of feel, but the fall like Stanford's quarterback, if they're a 6-win team, you're just not really doing it.
I also think kind of like Bryce, guys who move a little, guys who are a little shifty, easier to just flip on and watch for 5 minutes because they can just do something.
Plus, their highlights, if you're those guys just in the background, you're going to see a lot of those guys just in your vernacular. There's not a lot of like, well, there's one sleeper at Virginia. They're currently 3-4, but I'm telling you, keep an eye on. And the guy he might be a first-round pick, but he's not in it. You got to be good, and you got to have the hype. And to me, there are 2 guys far and away everyone else this year that are just going to be very easy to consume.
I would use last year as an example. I would bet most NFL people in September were not locked in on Kenny Pickett. By the end of the year, when he was a Heisman candidate, people kind of knew who he was.
They were not because he was a preseason like 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
Same thing with Baker. Remember? Baker, after his junior year, people thought like, probably not even a day 2 pick. And then by about halfway through, it's like, we gotta really watch this guy. Kyler Murray, same thing. Remember, it was like, what's up with this little guy? And then about 4 games in, it was like, yeah, we got to watch this guy. So part of it builds up. And that is the one thing I will say for coaches. They do hear the hype because who do they talk to? Because, I mean, you don't just always talk about like, sometimes on Wednesday, you just want to put your feet up for a second and like, man, you gotta watch this guy at so-and-so. You would love this guy, coach. And even when the scouts come back, depending on who your coaches are always bullshitting. Remember the story was Veach was just peppering Andy for like 2 straight years, him and Dorsey with Mahomes. You got to watch this guy. You got to watch this guy. You got to watch this guy. But I would say this. Veach had a pretty special relationship with coach. Like most non-GMs, because Veach wasn't the GM at the time, don't have just this unlimited treat their like coach like they would their dad or something, where you can just text them no matter what, whatever. Honestly, you leave them alone.
Afraid of them? Depends who's in charge. If you're the GM and you're in charge, you may not even bug the coach that much about it.
The GM is completely different. Yeah, it just depends.
Right, like Veach at the end of the day, Andy had to like him and be all in on him for him to draft him.
Exactly. They just had to get everybody on board. Imagine being like a Rams scout. What am I doing this for? Why am I driving right now?
Guys, we're going to trade the pick. You guys cool with that? Whatever.
Yeah.
Or we don't have a pick. Fellas, we want you to go watch the freshmen because that'll be the next time we have a first rounder when they're draft eligible.
Can't be as fun. Did you see the clip right before, speaking of like scouting and stuff, right before the Warriors game started, they were interviewing this guy. I wasn't really paying attention until they went back to like the play-by-play guy. And he's like, what a story. He was driving DoorDash last year.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what did they just say? Driving DoorDash?
So they played a clip of a guy that went viral like 2 days ago. He started tearing up during his post game. And he was like, last year this time I was driving DoorDash. I don't know who that guy was. I saw the clip go around. I didn't really investigate it.
Yeah, I laughed when
I guess he probably didn't play at Michigan.
But remember, didn't Zach Wilson drive Uber or DoorDash?
The quarterback?
I thought Zach Wilson did in college.
Did he?
I thought he did, but
it surprised me a little because
comes from a little cash.
But I remember him. I mean, he started as a true freshman. Somebody said in the chat, do you remember? I remember him. He wore number 1. He was good. He wanted to go to Utah. His family had season tickets at Utah. Didn't go to Utah.
Did you see his Instagram post?
I did see something. So he went to Idaho. Is that where he took the squad?
Coeur d'Alene. He knows where rich people could hang out.
So he goes up to Coeur d'Alene or wherever.
I don't
what
even
did he
know.
tweet?
I just
Yeah,
I
Coeur
didn't
d'Alene's
click on
good.
the thing. I thought it was Montana.
Oh, Montana. Okay.
But I saw some golf people quoting the tweet like, "That's a sweet place."
And he wrote just like, what anything been going on?
Yeah, no self-service up in the mountains.
So what do you think that means? Do you think that means it's true? And he's because I saw a couple of the comments were like go like players. Garrett Wilson was like goat emoji.
I mean, I think it's 100% true.
That means they think it's true, right?
Yeah.
But also that him and his mom are cool.
You know, I think it's possible. What if she knew about it? Because we're also assuming that she didn't know. What if it's one of those, Mom, I'm in love. She's like, I love your son. I just think rules are a little different.
Yeah.
You know, the Mormons, they do that thing called soaking.
If you don't move, people shake the bed, though. You get somebody to shake the bed.
So it's like a porn scene. There's other people in the room with you, too?
I don't know. So who told? Have we talked about this, you and I?
No, when you're soaking.
Somebody gave me a full breakdown a few months ago on soaking. And like the bed, you get somebody to shake the bed and then so you don't do any of the moving. But I guess we haven't had that conversation. So I got, God, who was it?
I would participate in the bed shaking. Just do you get to watch? You know, what do they just laying there?
Avert your eyes. You're just here for the shaking.
But she might not want to soak if she's an older lady, already had children. Like she's already passed.
Yeah, I think we're probably past that point.
Yeah, I would imagine Zach passed the soaking point a long time ago. Jim McMahon style.
Andy's a BYU guy.
Converted Mormon though.
Yeah.
Went there as a junior college transfer, met his wife there, had to convert. He's not. I don't think he grew up that way.
Right.
I'd say they fall under like Steve Young, whole life led that life, very serious about it. Andy converted for his wife, which you got to do what you got to do. And again, he was like no caffeine and stuff. Then you'd go by and you'd have a monster.
Didn't go on a mission.
No missions.
Wasn't Mormon at that time.
Well, his missions, guys, is to throw bombs. What was Zach's? Throw bombs, take down moms. That was funny is like, didn't you guys watch Zach Wilson last year? Was he the most inaccurate quarterback in the league? He wasn't throwing bombs last year.
Yeah, the widest like target spray chart basically of any quarterback in the NFL.
Like when politicians
don't get in the way of a good T-shirt.
When politicians throw a curveball to they say they're trying to keep you off the set. They don't want you to see this over here with this going on.
Oh, right.
Kind of Zach Wilson, this move, no one's really talking about are we sure this isn't a bust or what's going on here? It's like everyone just talking about that and he gets to fly under the radar.
Create a scandal.
Be a genius PR move. Because it's really not that bad. You're ultimately really liked her, known her for a long time. She came on to me. We've quote unquote been together. I was already broken up with my girlfriend. He's getting asked about this, don't you think, when training camp starts? Not by the legit media, but there's enough in New York. Feels like someone Zach. What was the off? Someone will try that.
That'll be the question. Eventful off season. How did you handle it? Something like that.
I wouldn't put it past just a blogger or something to just throw it out. Is the story true, Zach? Even though now thinking about it, who really gets asked about their personal life in those type of settings? I guess not.
I think you get asked you got a lot of attention this offseason. It must have been difficult to navigate. How did you handle it?
Yeah.
And then he can say, well, first of all, let me address the rumors. What if he just started his press conference like this? This is Melanie. We're in love.
Yeah.
I've met her kids. We all know each other. Just Ashton Kutcher of quarterbacks.
I do think the Jets, they've had some quarterbacks. Remember Mark Sanchez was dating Verlander's wife? I remember working for the Eagles. That was a big story. Him sneaking out, at his apartment to come back. What was her name?
Is it Upton?
Yeah, Kate. And there was a story of him on a practice day sneaking back into his apartment to grab his stuff to take off. And it became
Matt Harvey had a similar thing.
His included some cocaine, right?
Yep. Broadway Joe.
Little more just cooler back then, right? You're allowed to do that stuff.
Less attention, yeah.
Like, do you think Kenny Stabler gets away with it all in 2022? Favre did send a penis pic.
That's right. There was Favre.
Favre sent a penis pic back. Like, that was like the first year of potential sending pics on phones, just in general, like any pic, just a pic of like the sky. And Brett was on the forefront of that. Got outed quick by Settler or whatever.
Jen Sturger.
Not a bad Insta follow.
Yeah. 2010, man, that was early.
Early in the game.
That was a long time ago on the internet. Back when Deadspin ruled.
I wouldn't mind a moment like that. It feels like we haven't had one in a while. Like, ultimately, Zach Wilson, it's just the whole story was based on one comment that an ex-girlfriend made. It wasn't like, there's a naked picture of Zach Wilson and a 48-year-old, you know? We just don't get those as much anymore.
Yeah, people have gotten savvy.
I know. Come numb to it all.
All right. On that note, anything else to add today?
That's all I got.
Hey, go get in the mailbag, everybody. Go to Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave us some mailbag questions. We'll have another mailbag coming out soon. We always appreciate the content there. And good hang with everybody. Later.